Brothers, Marvin Devine, Huber, Axel, and you know how we do. Yeah, I got the juice. Big game cool, make them look like cool. Always play it cool, that's the biggest rule. Fuck that, what they doing, keep on doing that. I've been making loot since like 22. Ask me how I made it right here in the booth. I'm always pursued cause of what I pursue. That's greatness, yeah, I gotta make it, I got things to lose. Boy, wanna get in my crew, but you can't get in my crew. Me, Axel, and Huber, way too fireable. When this joint drop, better call the troops. And when you hear the drop, better raise the roof. Better raise the roof. You already know what happens when we link up. Let's go.
All these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep waves by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep waves by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta roll with ice. Ride or die, 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 ride or die. Cold, these brothers, my guys, know that they fly, know that they ride or die. I keep waves by my side, CJ Ike, now I gotta ride or die.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Tonight, extra special night on the show. Our guests tonight are Shane Blanchard and his childhood friend, Pastor Brad Hendrickson. We are telling Shane's kidney story tonight because Shane is looking for his third kidney transplant. If you wish to help Shane, check out his kidney page. Shane needs a kidney donor, and I'll make sure that I post a link to that so you can find it. Our friend Shane was born with a congenital disease called Eagle-Barrett syndrome. You might have heard it called prune belly disease, meaning he was born without any abdominal muscles, an oversized bladder, uneven sized kidney, and ureter issues. One of the many complications of Eagle-Barrett is that you might suffer chronic kidney failure. As an infant, Shane had many surgeries, including the reconstruction of his urinary tract, and finally, at the age of 21, Shane's kidneys did in fact fail. He received a kidney transplant from his brother Todd at the age of 22. That lasted 23 and a half years. That kidney eventually failed, and Shane needed a second kidney transplant. This is where Brad comes in, because on November 6th, 2019, he donated a kidney to Shane. Unfortunately, complications arose during the surgery, and the kidney was unable to be saved. Following the surgery, Shane had 2 stent placements, 7 blood transfusions from bleeding out. 2 times he had a hematoma removed and had very serious bacteria infections in his blood. He then had 6 months of multiple hospitalizations and was even in a nursing home for 1.5 months. This included rehabilitation time to relearn how to walk and talk. After his recovery, Shane started to look for another kidney donor. He has had his challenges doing this. Because of his numerous blood transfusions, he's built up immunities and an antibody level up to 99/100, meaning that only 1% of the population would be a match for Shane. He cannot accept a kidney from a deceased donor. He needs a living donor or someone to go through the kidney exchange, what we refer to as a donor swap program, for him. Despite all of this, Shane is a very, very active kidney advocate and advocates for other kidney patients. He started a page on Facebook called Midwest Kidney Warriors. Be sure you check that out. Please share this broadcast and Shane's kidney page, and if you can, sign up to test for Shane at the University of Iowa Hospital donor website. I have the link to that. I'll be happy to share that with you after the broadcast. Please welcome Shane and Brad to the show. Hello. How's everybody? All right.
Hey, how are you?
All right. Brad, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine, but we don't see you very well. It must have been something I said.
Is it better?
I think you're going to have to log off and log back on.
Oh, all right.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Hang on just.
While that's going on, Shane, tell us, how did you and Brad meet? Tell us how your friendship developed over the years.
Sure. Well, we met when we were 14 years old in junior high school together. We were both on a wrestling team together, and I think that's kind of how the friendship developed, was through wrestling. I think we were probably maybe 13, somewhere in there. And we just become really close friends and found a kinship with each other, you know, and he's been like a brother to me over the years, and I think I've been like a brother to him. His parents have been like parents to me. My parents have been like parents to him. So, you know, we'd hang out a lot together. We'd lift weights together. We played football together. Of course, I was a third string water boy while he was, you know, the beast that could do all when he get that football in his hand. You know, he was, that's what we called him, was it beast mode but no, Buffalo. That's what it was Buffalo. So anyways, yeah. So, you know, we've been friends for a long time, junior high, high school, and even after that. So we've known each other quite a while.
All right. You're looking good now, Brad. Tell us a little bit about how you and Shane met and your friendship, how it developed.
Well, it was interesting because I remember the first day I actually met him was at Jefferson School in Oskaloosa, the elementary school where we got on the bus. And I think what stood out about him the most was you could hear him. He was just a little hyper guy. And so I was pretty shy at that time in school, and he wasn't. But he just was one of those kids who would just talk to anybody and mess with anybody, whether he knew him or not. And so it just slowly we became friends, meeting each other on the bus, and then we started wrestling in 7th grade together, and so we started to hang out. So that's how I got started.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's talk about employment. We'll start with Brad. What kind of work do you do, Brad?
Okay. Well, I work at a Pence Elementary in Fairfield, Iowa. I'm a one-on-one associate with behavior students. And, on the show, you introduced me as Pastor Brad. I do have my ministerial license. I'm not a pastor of my own church or anything, but I do go around and minister periodically.
Okay.
I work at the school. I love working with the kids. So that's what I do.
Excellent. Excellent. Shane, same question. What kind of work do you do?
I'm a sales manager at 3 car dealerships. 2 of them are Oskaloosa, and then one's in Pella, Iowa. So, I keep myself busy 45 hours during the week working at the dealerships. There are multiple franchises. So we've got Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Chevy, Buick. So, we got a good mix of everything there. So I've been in the car business 24 years, and I absolutely love it. And I love where I work, and I've got great people, and I've got great owners, and I'm blessed in that manner.
Great, great. Tell us a little bit about Eagle-Barrett syndrome. When were you born, and what's your experience with the syndrome?
Well, I was born in 1974, and back then it was very rare. Growing up, I had only known of one other person in the United States that had it. So I grew up really not knowing a lot of other people with Eagle-Barrett syndrome. I guess growing up with it, for me, it's never been an issue because I haven't known any different. I still played football. I still wrestled. Even without abdominal muscles, I did all of that. People ask me how. I don't know, man. I just did it. My parents never let things stop me, or never let anything stop me from. The only thing Eagle-Barrett syndrome ever stopped me from becoming was a Marine. That's the only thing in my life that I've wanted to do that I was not able because of the disability. But and I shouldn't say disability because it's not a disability to me. I guess I would not want to be born any different as well, because I think it's made me such a stronger person. It's made me, have a lot more empathy for people as well. So, so that's about it. I mean, I can't say how I feel different or anything because I don't know any different. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. In introduction, I mentioned that you had multiple surgeries, you had reconstruction, a lot of problems when you were an infant. Did I get all of that right, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I always say I've had 50 surgeries. I know it's more than that now because of what's happened over the last 2 years. I know I'm in the 65 plus now, but I had multiple reconstructive surgeries on my urinary tract where, my kidneys weren't connected to the bladder. They had to go and put tubing in for that, as well as testicular issues down there that they've had to do some fixing on. And, the bladder is enlarged. Typically with Eagle-Barrett syndrome, your organs can be on the outside. I was lucky in that manner that my organs weren't on the outside. My stomach was enclosed around it, but there wasn't that sac that you normally have. So a lot of that was reconstructive surgeries that I've had when I was young, all the way through 5th grade was the last time that I'd had a childhood surgery, and I went all the way till the age of 22 until that transplant, that I didn't have to have anything done.
Excellent. Brad, since you've known Shane, when did you first learn about his medical issues?
Well, when I met him, he was not afraid to let people know what he had.
I'd show it off.
Yeah, but I think it was a good way for him to be able to actually deal with it. It was kind of uncomfortable for some people, but you get used to it, And so when he would take this band off and he would show what it looked like, it was definitely different. It wasn't like anybody else. But he dealt with it really well. Um, looking back, I don't think I would have dealt with it like he did. Uh, but for not having those abdominal muscles, and watching him wrestle, it was really pretty amazing because he was a pretty decent wrestler, and that was something he loved to do. We went to tournaments, a couple tournaments. I didn't last as long as he did, but he was a good wrestler. But it was pretty amazing to watch him, knowing that he didn't have that, because when you don't have that issue, you take it for granted, your health for granted, and the things you have. And so he's been a trooper the whole ever since I've known him. He's always kept a positive mental attitude about what he has.
Excellent. Excellent.
And just to give you an idea, Jim, Eagle Barrett syndrome is exactly what it sounds like. If you've seen a baby eagle where it's got a really small chest and a great big abdominal area, that's the name. That's an Eagle Barrett. I mean, my stomach is. I was this scrawny little kid, but if I would take my band off, my gut would just go, boom, and it would blow up huge. And so that's kind of how it gets that name, because it looks like a baby eagle.
Okay. Shane, it's my understanding your kidneys actually failed around the age of 21. Please tell us what happened. What year was this?
Sure. So that would have been about 1996. And, granted, my creatinine at that time was a 13, which is very high. So the doctors thought that I'd probably been in kidney failure since I was 16 or 17 years old. They just said I never noticed it because I was wrestling all the time and I was in such great shape. And so it took until I got older, when I wasn't as active, that I started feeling the effects of it. And what I was getting is I was getting really bad runny noses. I was having flu-like symptoms, and I was getting really bad cramps in the back of my legs. And so at the time, I'd gone to about 2 different doctors, and they told me I just had the flu. And so it took about 3 months before I finally got diagnosed, because I went to my doctor in Oskaloosa, Dr. Spar, and she did a blood test. And that's where we found out my creatinine was a 13. And she said, "You're in full-blown kidney failure." And so then I had to go to Iowa City, and they confirmed it was kidney failure. And I'll never forget this, being 21 years old, and the doctor saying, "You only have a year to live if you don't get a kidney." And and to this day, I hated that doctor saying that to me, because I said, "No, I ain't going to die." I said, "I'll beat this." And he goes, "Well, you're going to have to get a kidney." And I said, "Well, whatever I got to do, but I'm not dying." And my brother, we called him at the time. He had lived out in Colorado, and told him what was going on. And he said, "You got my kidney." He said it right away. At 23 years of age, he did not even hesitate. And, I did dialysis for about 5 months, and then I got a transplant.
What kind of dialysis at that time are we talking about, Shane?
I was doing in-center hemodialysis. And the thing about it back in 1996 and 97, you didn't have the DaVitas or the Freseniuses. You didn't have those type of facilities around here. So I live in Oskaloosa. Iowa City was an hour and a half away. So I would have to drive 90 minutes to my dialysis. And back then I was doing Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I would go for 4 hours. And so that's 3 hours on top of the 4, and including lunch and stuff. So it was a 9-hour day. Yeah. And, I was just a young man at the time. And so, I did have a girlfriend, and she was hot, by the way. But I did have a girlfriend back then. And, she would drive me, or my mom would drive me, or my dad would take me. But, it was tough. And back then I used to have to I'm lucky now when I look back, because back then I had to get wheelchaired out after every treatment. So I think the treatments back then weren't as good as now with hemodialysis, because today, when I used to do in-center hemo today, I quit because I do PD now, but I would go to dialysis and I would drive home and then fall asleep. Back then, I wouldn't even be able to walk or drive in a car. I'd have to be taken by a wheelchair to the car and drove home. So,
ouch. It's my understanding, Shane, that you received a kidney transplant from your brother Todd at the age of 22. Tell us, what happened that led up to Todd donating to you?
When you say what happened, do you mean with the transplant itself, or the procedures?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, because I don't remember a lot of that. I do remember him coming and having to get tested. He did a lot of his testing out of state, which was really nice. And, you know, I remember always wanting the surgery to happen now. And for me, it seemed like it took forever. You know, I would love to be able to be told I'm going to get a kidney in 5 months. I'd be ecstatic about it. But back then it drove me crazy having to wait. But, you know, he had to go through a whole bunch of different tests and everything. We were a 6 antigen match, which is very good. I think that's identical twins almost. And so, it worked out great. I mean, I got 23 and a half years out of that kidney. I would have liked to have got longer, but, you know, the doctor said I didn't do anything to cause it because I felt really guilty when I found out that the kidney was failing, and I was trying to figure out with the doctors what I did wrong. How did I do it? And they said, you didn't. It's just scarred up, and it's damaged from the Prograf, you know, because I've been taking that for probably 18 years. And so it was nothing of my doing that I could have done to prevent it, is what they said. So, but
Sure.
I felt horrible.
All right. Where did the first transplant occur, Shane?
My first transplant I got in Iowa City, and that happened on right here. I got it on my arm. September 25th of 97 is when that happened. So I've got it tattooed on my arm with my brother's initials, and then I've got Brad's initials on my arm with the date of our surgery too. But that happened September 25th of 97. And I'll never forget, I'll tell you this, when we were going in, we were both on gurneys laying next to each other. And I'll never forget we going in and my brother giving me a thumbs up when he was going in. And that's probably one of the times I cried the hardest in my life, because I felt horrible back then.
Because of your brother?
I did, yeah, man. I felt horrible what he was having to go through for me. And Brad doesn't know this, but the day Brad got taken back, I was sobbing that day after they took him back as well, just because of, and don't feel bad, Brad, but it was just I felt guilty, man. And I still do now, even because of what happened. But it's tough, man. It's tough to see somebody you love sacrificing themselves to do something like that. And Brad got lucky because my brother got cut from his belly button to his spinal cord around in half. You know, Brad, they did him with, 3 holes, and the next day he was up walking around. It took my brother 2 weeks, and my brother was in the hospital 2 weeks. He was in the hospital longer than I was for his recovery because they really cut him good.
How long were you in, Shane?
Back then I was only in there about 6 days, and he was in there double that.
Okay. Brad, did you know Shane after his first transplant? If you did, what observations did you make, if any?
During the time before, when he started getting sick, I wasn't around at the time. But afterward, it was probably a few months afterward, after he'd had it. I hadn't seen him in a while. And because of the medications and stuff, I'd seen him, and I'm like, what happened? And he was just ballooned up, It was a sight that I wasn't used to seeing because he was always so scrawny. And, but, after he had that transplant, he was back to the normal Shane, bouncing off the walls and, doing his normal stuff. He lived life. There was no, I was told, I remember him telling me how bad he felt before he got it. And literally after the surgery and the kidney, once it kicked in, how much better he already felt. And, his brother was just like miserable. So,
well, I imagine,
pretty amazing.
That old time surgery, not a laparoscopic surgery. That's pretty expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shane, describe for us, what challenges, if any, did you face after your first transplant?
I really didn't have a lot of challenges. I was 22 years old. I was in pretty decent shape. I recovered. I was up walking around the same day as the surgery, but I was doing a lot of walking. I mean, I felt really good. It was crazy. I ate a large taco pizza that day, but my recovery was great. I felt just like I did when I was 18 years old. I felt normal again. The only thing that was different for me is that I was having to take all these different medications because I never took any meds before this. And so then all of a sudden I was on, cyclosporin is what they put me on originally. And I was taking prednisone and then I had to be on a blood pressure pill. I'd never had high blood pressure before, but from the transplant, evidently I got high blood pressure, which was odd. But But yeah, I was on medications. That was probably the only thing that really got me, that was really new to me. And I was paranoid because I was always afraid that I would miss my 8 o'clock med time. So I would have an alarm, an alarm clock, because you remember those watches that were calculators?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I used as an alarm. So that would go off at 8 in the morning and then 8 o'clock at night. And I always had pills in my house, and I would have pills in my car just in case I was ever somewhere and would forget them. And I was always paranoid about missing that 12, because I knew it had to be every 12 hours. And so I always stuck with that. And it's always been 8 p.m. And even to this day, I still do 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. because I still take immunosuppressants to this day.
Okay. It's my understanding, Shane, that the first kidney transplant lasted 23 and a half years. Am I right about that?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What led to the kidney being rejected? What happened?
They said that it was due to just scarring from overtime from the tacrolimus or Prograf is what they believed it was. They'd went in and they did a couple biopsies on there, and that's what they said. It just ran its course. I didn't realize that Prograf could have negative effects on a kidney. It'll help your immune system, but I didn't realize that it would do that. So what they did is they ended up taking me off of Prograf, because I had found out that with his kidney, it was probably 4 years ago when it started to actually fail, and they took me off of Prograf and put me on sirolimus, I think was the name of it. And so I started taking sirolimus, and I started doing a kidney diet, and I think that gave me another 2 years before I actually got to the point where they said I need dialysis. So yeah, that's kind of how it went. So
okay. Brad, can you tell us about your observations of Shane from the beginning of his first transplant until the rejection?
Well,
what did you notice when the kidney started to go south?
Well, one thing that I remember him saying, he'd be going to work, and he's one that doesn't like to miss work. And it's not that he missed, but he struggled staying awake. He was exhausted. It really just took his energy level and just depleted it. And he said there was times that he would fall asleep and they wouldn't wake him up at work because they knew he was just exhausted. And thankfully, where he was at, they knew what he was dealing with. And so they were very gracious about it. So you knew there was something not right, that, that kidney was really causing an issue and it was failing. Because from when he was healthy with that kidney, there was quite a difference. So it was on its way out, or completely out, actually.
Okay. Brad, talk to us a little bit. What led you to donate to Shane? Why did you do it? Why did you make the decision to do it?
It was pity. I guarantee it was pity.
It was just one of those things. I knew God wasn't done with him yet. And I knew I know he still has a plan for Shane. I mean, that's why he's still here today doing this stuff. And so it was kind of interesting, because I said, well, I'll just see if I'm a match. I remember asking him, what do I do? And he says, if you just make that phone call, call them. And he says, I'm not asking you to do it. He says, if you don't want to, it's okay. And I said, no, I'll just call and see.
Okay. I think we lost Brad again. Oh, there he is. No? In and out. Talk to us a little bit, Shane, about the testing process that you went through before. Oh, no, he's upside down. Brad, talk to us about the testing process that you went through before you could donate to Shane.
Well, when I started testing, I had no idea what it entailed. They want to make sure the donor is as healthy as possible. The amount of blood tests, I mean, if you have an underlying condition, they're going to find it. And I'd never been through that kind of testing before, ever. And so,
did you have any underlying conditions, Mr. I'm Perfect Health?
We had a slip up one day. It was pretty funny. I went. He went to my appointment with me one day, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but how it came out did not sound good. And
he was talking about, I can't believe how healthy I am and how perfect I am. And I said, well, that makes me, okay, Mr. Healthy Man, Mr. I'm perfect. And then why don't you tell him what you found out that day, Brad?
Was that the day I had to go back the next day?
Yeah, because of the blood pressure.
Oh, yeah. My blood pressure was higher than what they like. It wasn't super high, but it was higher than what they were comfortable with. And so I really had to watch that. So as a result, because they had originally scheduled it for July, the surgery, because through all the testing, I was a really good match. And as a result, I had to work on my blood pressure because they said we don't think you need to have any medication. You can do it with diet and exercise. And I had been exercising, but my diet, I just thought I was eating whatever I wanted. And so that was a real wake up, and so that's what I did. And I was really anxious because I wanted to get it down.
Okay.
And I wanted him to have that I wanted him to get the kidney as soon as possible.
Absolutely. How did you feel, Brad, when you found out that you were a match and this was actually going to go forward?
That was just it. I didn't, I knew there was that chance that I could be a match or I couldn't be. And when they said I was a match, I had a choice. It's like, do I continue to go further or do I just say, well, so once I found out I was a match, I asked my wife, I said, I'm a match. I said, what do you think? And she says, you do whatever you think you need to do. And so I went further, and every test was even closer, And I really have a real respect for those who have gone in and out of the hospital, as much as you have those that deal with kidney issues and all those issues, because I'd never spent so much time in a hospital before. That's enough for me. That was very uncomfortable, but it was worth it. It didn't turn out the way we'd hoped, but you never know anyway.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
But the testing and all that, I mean, it was just it did kind of get my nerves a little bit, It was scary. I'll admit it was a little bit scary because I didn't know what I was getting into. And at the same time, going through the test, I'm like, what if there's something wrong with me? So you just have those things that go through your head. But if you look at the person and take yourself out of the equation, it's so much easier to do because you are in a better spot than the person that needs the kidney. And so if you can do that you can make it. Because the process of the healing after the surgery, for me, was easy because it was laparoscopic. It was so easy. I went in on a Wednesday. I left on Friday.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Shane, let's talk about the second transplant itself. Where and when did it take place?
So the second transplant took place up in Des Moines. And like I said, that was on November 6th of 2019 is when we had that done.
Okay. And describe what complications came up during and after the surgery. What happened?
I can't get into a lot of detail, but there was just during the surgery, there was complications on the prep of the kidney and then the hookup of the kidney. And that's what caused it. That's where the failure happened. And then after the removal of the kidney, the stitching, the stitching was done wrong when they removed the surgery as well. And that's why I had to get the stents placed. And that's why I bled into my stomach. And so that happened twice. They put a stent in, it still bled. So then they went in a second time and they removed the hematoma and all the blood in my body because I bled out that night when I was sleeping in my bed and I got taken by ambulance.
Okay. And it's my understanding that second transplant only lasted 13 days. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Talk to us a little bit, Shane, about the follow-up to the kidney transplant, the care, the treatment, the complications, the things you had to go through.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. When because of that artery got messed up and I had that hematoma, I ended up getting a bacteria infection in my blood. And so they, at that time, I didn't want to be where I was anymore. I wanted to be at a different hospital. So I got taken by ambulance to Iowa City, which is where I've had all my previous surgeries. And so I got taken there because I was constantly sick out of both ends. So it was chicken noodle soup, man. It was bad, and I couldn't hold it. I couldn't contain it, and so I got taken to Iowa City, and that's where I found out that I had that bacteria infection in my blood, and they were going to put me on a medicine that they said that would affect my speech and it would affect my balance, and it could be that way for life. And then they said that the surgery that they had to do was replace the artery that's on my left side of my body. And because of all the scarring, because they had put the kidney in, they took the kidney out, tried to fix it another day, and then they put it back in, and then they went in a third time through the same hole, cut that open, took the kidney out, tried to fix it again, put it back in again, and then finally on the day of Thanksgiving, that's when they removed the kidney for good. And so I had already had, 4 procedures through the same incision through that kidney. And then when I was in Iowa City, they said that there was so much scar tissue there that I could bleed out, I wouldn't make it. So they were going to go through where I'd had another scar from when I had reconstructive surgery as an infant. They were going to use that scar to go in and remove the hematoma. And so they went in and they removed the hematoma, but they were not able to close me up. So I had to get this vacuum pack thing on my stomach, and I had to have that on there for 2 weeks with the incision not being closed. It was still open. They wanted it to heal from inside out, not from the inside in. So I had that vacuum pack on in Iowa City for 2 weeks. Once that healed up, then that's when they went in to do the surgery on the artery. And it just happened that Dr. Axelrod had done a transplant the day before, and the cadaver that was provided for that patient, he didn't need that artery. So he took me into surgery and he replaced that artery into me. And that was the surgery where I had a 50-50 shot. It was either going to be, I'm either going to die during the surgery, I'm going to lose my left leg from the hip down, or I'm going to wake up and it was successful. And I had Dr. Axelrod, the head of transplant. I had the head of vascular surgeon in there. There was also a disease person that was in there as well, and then the head of heart and vascular. So I had 4 of the big surgeons at Iowa City that did this procedure on me, and it lasted about 4.5 hours. And I woke up, and the first thing I remember waking up, and I couldn't talk. There was something in my throat, and I felt something up here, and it was something going down in me, and I kept on pointing to take it out. And come to find out later, it was a breathing tube that I had in me. So that's something that was kind of uncomfortable. But I've never really talked about this before openly. It's
okay, buddy.
Yeah.
We all love you, right?
Yeah, I know. It's hard. I got through it and I'm good now. So, but it was tough. It was a very tough challenge, but I woke up and I had that thing in my mouth and that sucked. And then I reached down and I could feel my leg. And then I was like, okay, then in my head, I'm assuming I couldn't communicate to find out if the surgery was successful until I got that stupid thing out of my mouth. That was how, and I guess it was a thing that helps breathe for you because, I was out for so long or something like that, they said. So that's why it was there to make sure to help me breathe. So, but yeah, so that's that.
Okay. Brad, did you see Shane during this period of time? And if you did, what were your impressions?
I was a shriveled up old man going to die.
No, well, you're not Brad.
It was, we went to see him in Iowa City, my wife and I did. And this was right before they started to close stuff down, Anyway, we went in there and he was in ICU. And we walked. They told him where he was at, where he was at. So we went in there, and he was sleeping. And the way he was sleeping was not. I mean, I saw him, and I instantly my eyes started watering because of how he looked. I mean, he looked 20, 30 years older. His skin was wrinkled. You could tell he'd just been through literal hell. And just the sounds. He was delirious. His dad had told me he was delirious because all the medications they had him on and all the stuff he'd gone through. And so when his dad said he was delirious, I didn't quite know what he meant until I saw him. And he was not Shane. It was, he was in and out of consciousness. He would talk, and he would look right at us and have a conversation, but he didn't remember us even being there. So it was really really something. So my wife and I prayed over him before we left, and he did not remember that time we were there. And so the next time I saw him was when we were when he got moved to Ottumwa for physical rehab, I think it was.
Okay. Shane, we mentioned that in the opening. Can you talk to us a little bit about your rehabilitation and what happened there?
Yeah, that was very frustrating, rehabilitation, because they would come in there and they would want me to do these memory games with them, and it was extremely difficult to do. She would give me like three numbers, like 1, 3, 5, and then I'd have to say it backwards to her, like 5, 3, 1. I can do it now, but then I would just sit there and I couldn't figure it out. And then she would give me different words to say that would be difficult, and that was really hard for me. The other thing that was hard is walking. I couldn't walk at all. In fact, they had an alarm on my bed because I would try to get out of bed to get myself to walk, and I couldn't do it. And that alarm would go off. And one time I thought I broke my leg because I got up and I fell completely backwards and couldn't do anything. And that alarm came. Luckily, that alarm came on because I couldn't do anything. But what really helped me was I can't remember the guy's name, but he would take me in my wheelchair back to the rehabilitation room, and he had this thing that he would put around my chest, and he would help lift me up and help me to stand up. And then they put these things around me that held me up. And then I would just get moving with my legs on a treadmill and walk in. And then I would get on a bicycle, where you'd sit down and just pedal your feet to get leg strength back. And, I did that as probably a month. I think I did that at the hospital in Ottumwa, that I was going through the vocational rehab and then the physical rehabilitation as well. Yeah, it really knocked me on my butt. The nursing home is where I got a lot of really good help, believe it or not. I didn't like being in a nursing home. I was probably the youngest person there, but the staff that was there was awesome. The ladies that were there were just so patient, and they pushed me, which I really liked, because when I was at the Ottumwa hospital, there was days I would tell them no, or days I'd say I don't want to do anything, and they'd just walk out and leave. And I thought that, and looking back at it, that's unfortunate that they would do that, because at the nursing home, they wouldn't. The lady would tell me, no, we want you to live. We want you to survive. You can do this. You can do this. And it was one day when I was going back, and she came into my room to get me, and she wheeled me out and showed me where I was at. And I was in hospice, and I didn't realize it. But that's where they put my room, was in the hospice. I was in the hospice area of the nursing home. And I asked if I was in hospice for a reason. They think I was going to die or something. And she goes, no, this is the only room available. And she goes, but we don't know where you're quite at yet. And that scared the hell out of me. And that's when I really started pushing myself. And I figured out how to, I tricked a nurse into getting my alarm off on my bed every night so I could get up, and I would hold on to my wheelchair and I would walk around my room. And then I got myself eventually where I could go up and down the hallway. And then I would just go to the rehab center on my own and start doing things on my own. And I was out of that nursing home in 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
No, I was there for a month. I was there for a full month. It was 2.5 weeks. It took me it was after that hospice thing. It was like 2.5 weeks. I remember that's when I really started pushing myself, when I realized where I was at. So,
okay.
Because I was 122 pounds, man. I went in at 190 pounds the day of surgery, and by the time I got out of the nursing home, I was 122 pounds. I was just a stick figure, man. In fact, I talked to when I went to clinic today, to the dialysis center where I used to go, and I did rounds to meet with patients today, and I got talking with my nurse afterwards, and she told me she wasn't sure if I was gonna. When she first saw me there, she wasn't sure if I was going to make it or not. She thought I was just there temporarily until I passed. So yeah, to really get beyond it is a true miracle, and that's why now it's motivated me to do what I'm doing, with advocacy, which we'll probably get into. But yeah, I found my calling.
Okay, tell me a little bit about your current search for a new donor. How are you going about it? What are you doing?
So, I'm using people like yourself and Jeff Brown and Jared Brown. I'm using and Kent Bressler, who's just a huge blessing to my life. People like that can help spread the word for me, and I'm learning things from them too. And it's just trying to find that one needle in a haystack. With my antibodies being so high, my doctor says it's 1 out of 100 people that come forward. That's going to be a match. So, it's just trying to use social media and newspapers and billboards and news stations and TV stations to get the word out, man, because I don't want to die, man. I want to live, and I want to make an impact on the world, and I want to change people's lives for the better. And so, I'm looking for that needle in a haystack and doing what I got to do to live that normal life, because, dialysis isn't a cure, man. It's a treatment. And it's just something to keep you going. But eventually it wears on your body. It only does 15% of the work of the kidneys. So eventually things are going to start giving out, and I'm going to be gone. So, I need that kidney. I need that savior, that hero.
Okay. Some basics so people can find you. What is your birthday again? What is your blood type? Where are you listed? And if you can remember, who is your transplant coordinator?
Sure. I am listed at the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics in Iowa City, Iowa. My blood type is AB positive, which is awesome. That's universal. That means anybody can donate because I'm AB positive. We just have to match up on serum and antibodies, which those will be included in your testing when you do everything from the beginning. So who my coordinator is, there's at Iowa City, there's quite a few coordinators. So I don't think there's just one. There's several that work on it. And unfortunately, I'm not aware of her name, but you can look up my Facebook page that Uncle Jim was talking about. Shane Needs a Kidney Donor. And the website is right there for the kidney, or you can call my cell phone at 515-393-1250, and I can direct you where you need to go as well.
All right. And just so you know, Shane, Jeff Brown has been posting this information to help people, find you and donate and that sort of thing. So it's in the broadcast, and it'll be in the comments to the broadcast as well. So everybody, can give Shane a help out. We mentioned during the introduction, the kind of donation that you need is a live donation, not from a cadaver type patient. Is that correct?
Yeah, either someone, it has to be living or through the exchange. So because of those antibodies, I had so many blood transfusions. There was 7 or 8 of them because when I lost all that blood, I had to get blood back in me. Otherwise I wasn't going to live. So first off, thank you to people out there that donate blood. That saves people's lives like myself and so many other people's lives that might be in something as simple as a car accident. So definitely donate blood when you can. But it's because of all that that I have high antibodies now that are 99 out of 100, and that's how high it is. So
okay. And just so everybody knows, Shane's done a number of these broadcasts. He's got links on YouTube. He's got newspaper articles, all that kind of thing. His kidney page on Facebook. And when I post during the week this week, I'll be posting links to all of that stuff. So, you can find it. You can find the links to donate to him or to register to donate. And if you're just a kidney patient like your Uncle Jim and you can't donate for some reason, please share. Please don't forget to share, because that's what that kidney page is for. So let's make sure we get the word out there for our buddy Shane, okay? Brad, have you been helping Shane in any way find a new donor? And if so, what are you doing?
Well, like some of the stuff that he posts, I'll share some of that. Also, in the area I'm at, I also let people know what I've done and how being a live donor is actually worth it. They know people that I work with, people in the community that I live in, they know the story and what's happened. And they know that they actually have people often ask, "Hey, how's Shane doing?" And I'll say, "Well, he's doing well, but he still needs a donor." And so it's interesting because it's really important to get it out, because it takes a little bit of bravery to be a living donor for some people. And if they just can get past the initial fear of it, it's really not that bad.
Okay. Shane, I've seen you become more and more active on social media, advocating for other kidney patients. I've seen the new Facebook page, Midwest Kidney Warriors. Can you discuss with us a little bit your advocacy for other kidney patients?
Yeah, so Midwest Kidney Warriors, which you can see is, if I can do a shout out, is right here, MidwestKidneyWarriors.com. But what
we call
it's
that
about,
a shameless plug on this show, Shane.
So what it's about is helping other people, find living donors, people, like myself. So, just working with people like Jim and Kent and Jeff Brown and Jared Brown and Jonathan Traylor and Mr. Kidney. I mean, all these people out there that do such great things on social media. Everybody kind of works together as a team, even Steve Belcher, he's got great educational material. So what I'd like to do is work with all these people together and collaborate for patients to find kidney donors for them, and use these resources that are out there to find kidney donors for people. And then the second part of Midwest Kidney Warriors is to help in-center and out-of-center dialysis patients as a patient advocate. And so what that is just being a person. Today I went to Newton, Iowa, and Ottumwa, Iowa, and I went around chair to chair talking with each person. And sometimes people that are upset or having anxiety or having issues, they're not really going to talk to the nurses about it, because the nurses don't know what they're going through. And sometimes they don't always bring that stuff up to social workers either. So it's a lot easier for them to talk to somebody who's in the same situation or has gone through the same situation with them, that they can share their stories and their struggles with. And so that's what I do, is I go around and I meet with those people and listen to them and talk to them. And I think I talked to about 20 different patients today at these two clinics, and and I think 6 of them I actually had really good conversations with that needed somebody to talk to. So that was really cool. And that's what my life and my calling, I think, is. And I think that's what God wants me to do, is to be an advocate for people and to be a blessing to those that are currently in center struggling. So that's what Midwest Kidney Warriors is all about.
Excellent. Shane, tell us what receiving a third kidney transplant would mean to you and your family. Why is it important?
Well, because then I can get married and have lots of kids, man. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done being. I'm 47. I'm not going to have any more kids. No, I mean, I could live life. I mean, right now I'm tied up and tethered to a dialysis machine, 10, 11 hours a day. Well, it is 11 hours, because my treatment's a 10-hour treatment, and it takes about a half hour to set up and a half hour to tear down. So it's 11 and 11 and a half hours a day that I'm tethered to a machine from 8 o'clock at night till 7 o'clock in the morning. And so, first and foremost, I would be able to get away from that machine that's not doing everything that I need it to do. That's where I need a kidney. I want to be able to live a normal, happy life, and that's what a kidney donor will be able to do. And I want to be able to go out and help and bless other people, with a nonprofit organization I started. And then through my career at my dealerships, I've got 3 car dealerships, and I have a ton of people there that I rely on and that also rely on me and I want to be there to help them be successful in life and to, earn a living so they can take care of their families in a good way. And so that's what I need a kidney for, is to be able to do that stuff and live my life and be a blessing and be of service.
Excellent. Brad, how would you feel if your buddy Shane got a kidney transplant?
I'd be ecstatic.
You can give me another one if you want.
I tell you what, if I had 3 kidneys, honestly, I would do it again.
I asked Henry the other night. I've got a Chihuahua. He wanted to donate, but I said I'd have to have both of yours, and so he ran off into his little house.
Uh-oh. All right, guys. Is there anything else that you wish to talk about or that I forgot to ask about before we sign off? Is there anything I've forgotten? We'll start with Shane.
No, I think you hit all subjects. You hit on some pretty sensitive stuff that I don't talk about. I don't like to talk about negative things in life. So that was kind of hard to talk about and share. But, I appreciate you, Uncle Jim. You do a lot of good things for a lot of people out there. And I know you've got a lot of pages out there where you spend a lot of time educating yourself to be a good advocate. And I just want to thank you for everything you do for the people in our community as a transplant patient yourself. So you're a blessing, and thank you.
You guys are welcome, more than welcome. Brad, anything I forget? Anything you'd like to say to end the show?
Yeah, actually, if there's anybody listening to this that is even considering, getting tested for somebody, a loved one, or even Shane, I want to encourage you to do it. I think you would be amazed at how much of a blessing you'd be for that person, and also for just blessing. It's better to give than it is to receive, honestly. And it's never a guarantee, but there's always it's a higher chance that it's going to work out. And so I just want to encourage those who are listening right now. If you're considering it, follow that and see what happens.
Excellent. Thank you, Brad. All right. That's our show for tonight, folks. Watch this space. We've got more great material coming up. I'll talk to you at the end of the month. Bye-bye.
Now I gotta ride or die.